Franco Mondo, right? From BMA Group. He's a sales strategist and expert, and he will talk to us about the importance of entrepreneurship in the development of your business and in the development of Puerto Rico. Mr. Mondo, please help me welcome him with an applause.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much. I think some of our panelists may be outside. Thank you for coming in. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for spending the day here with us. I want to thank Ricardo. Ricardo, where are you? Thank you for putting this together and putting this magnificent presentation today. You started the morning saying that we were here to promote tax incentives. Then we talked about promoting business opportunities. We moved along during the day, and this has all been building up. Roderick Miller, CEO of Invest Puerto Rico, said that Puerto Rico's net export on talent somehow has been very present. And he mentioned the C-suite executives that are Puerto Ricans that have gone to work outside of Puerto Rico, and they want to give back, they want to come back, they want to help Puerto Rico. And that's something that we're going to talk about today. We talked a little bit later about Bill Mulholland and the group of the 20ers and the 22ers. They had a lot to say about Puerto Rico, but they all coincided in one thing. You know, Puerto Rico's great, we have great talent here. And what do we do with that talent? Well, it keeps going on, you know. Maria de Los Angeles from Kibane, she talked about the OZ funds. I loved her analogy of the cupcake. And then again, we have the great cupcake. Oh, there you are. We have the great cupcake, and some of the frosting in that cupcake is a great people. And once again, the talent we have here in Puerto Rico. So I'm going to move on. You know, I've been so lucky to have been selected to moderate this panel because of the wonderful people that are going to be talking to us. These are extraordinary women. I think they're all superheroes. They're Puerto Ricans doing it for Puerto Rico, having to do with entrepreneurship, and they're either part of the program or they're working the program. So I'll tell you a little bit about who they are, and I'll bring them on stage as I introduce them. I'll introduce to you first the matchmaker. She's been putting together private equity with entrepreneurial community for Puerto Rico. That's Laura Cantero, Executive Director of the Grupo Guayacán. Laura. And I'll let her introduce you and give you a few more details in a little bit. The pioneer, or the pioneer of the pioneer of co-working, the pioneer of coding, Sofia Stolberg, please, if you would. Now, my other panelist, the funky hotelier. Innovation is no stranger to her. Please, Louise Herger, please step up, the CEO of OLV Hotels. How she has brought innovation to the industry and to the sector altogether. So, Louise, we'll talk to you in just a few minutes. And the Entrepreneur. She's an entrepreneur techie who has maximized the opportunities in Puerto Rico. If you would, please, Lincy Ayala. She's really the result in our case study to show that there's great talent doing great things in Puerto Rico. No, I stay over here. These are a wonderful group of women I'd like you all to meet. I'll tell you a little story before we get started. For the last 4 nights, I have a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I tell them bedtime stories. So for the last 4 nights, I've been telling them about these characters that I've met. I told her about the funky hotelier, and the matchmaker, and the pioneer lady, and of course the techie. So I hope that you enjoy the stories as much as I did. I think it's a great opportunity to wrap up what we've done today. So I'll ask you a little bit. I'll start on the left, or my left. Laura, if you would please tell us a little bit your story about how you got to where you are in the organization. What does it do to Puerto Rico in the entrepreneurial world?
Thank you, Franco, for having us. Thank you to Ricky for the invitation, and to my distinguished panelists. My name is Laura Cantero. I'm Executive Director of Grupo Guayacán. I like to say I am the non-entrepreneur in a room full of entrepreneurs. Or for this crowd, I'm a reformed banker. So I did banking for 15 years before joining Guayacán, and coming back to Puerto Rico with the conviction that I wanted to do something for Puerto Rico. I didn't really know what that was, and I got the opportunity to lead Guayacán. Guayacán is a nonprofit organization founded in 1996, so this is our 24th year.
A very mature organization.
Yes, that has taught me actually to be an entrepreneur, because mature organizations have their own challenges in terms of keeping themselves relevant in a changing ecosystem such as Puerto Rico. So as you said at the beginning, for 24 years we've been working both on the private equity side and on the entrepreneurship development side, which is probably what we're most known for. We're a strange nonprofit because we have a recurring revenue source. We manage with a partner out in New York, Fund of Funds family. So basically it's a family of private equity funds. It's a vehicle for Puerto Rican investors to invest in private equity and diversify their investments in that way. And the management fee from the funds actually gives us fund to run the nonprofit operation. So how do we structure our work? We offer several different programs for entrepreneurs at different stages of growth. So it's not an incubator, not an accelerator, it's a nonprofit organization that just has a series of different programs. And the best way to really see it is that depending on what stage you're in, if you have an idea and you're starting a business, or if you're a startup that already has some traction like Lincy's startup, for example, or if you're a more mature operation like Sofia's, you might be able to find what you need within our programs, and Sofia is actually an alumni, so happy to be here with her.
Very big fan.
Extraordinary. So we see that we have formal structures, mature structures to help match the funds with the ideas or the businesses to help them grow. And we do that here in Puerto Rico. We've been doing it since 1996. Thank you. Heard you talking about Sofia together, so she's our pioneer. Tell us a little bit your story, Sofia. I'd love to hear it.
Well, I'm actually a reformed management consultant, so here we go.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on this panel. Thank you, Ricky. My background is really management consulting. So Laura is a reformed banker. I'm a reformed management consultant. And the result of that was that I really helped shape a lot of entrepreneurship ecosystems worldwide before I founded Piloto with my brother, Juan Carlos, who's actually here in the audience. And Piloto 151, when we started it, was really the first co-working space in Puerto Rico. Nobody knew what co-working was at all here. And obviously it took a process of education to bring people up to speed. But more than a co-working space, and now we are the only multi-location one. We manage over 50,000 square feet of commercial real estate across 4 locations and growing. More than that, we are really a community. We're a community of entrepreneurs. I like to say that we're the startup for startups. And we do our very best to enable entrepreneurs here on the island to grow and thrive.
Sofia, as we were getting ready, you told me a little bit about the different things you do, but today I heard Rodolfo Sanchez, Rudy, talking about government and bureaucracy as being one of the greatest obstacles to the development of new business. I know you do something about it. Can you tell us a little bit?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I'm sure many people that are thinking about moving down to Puerto Rico do some research, right? And when you look Puerto Rico up on the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index, Puerto Rico actually doesn't fare that well, right? We're number 64 on the list. We're still number 2 in terms of the LATAM region, but 64 is kind of a long ways away from doing business, say, stateside, right? And one thing that we help entrepreneurs deal with, again, as Franco mentioned, is go through the red tape. So when you do business here on the island, or when you're considering doing business on the island, one of the things that we do is that we make it very easy for you to do that. So with us, you can open a virtual office that gives you access to a prime business address that you can use to open bank accounts, to start getting mail. We have a very sophisticated mail management service as well. And it's all app-based, where you can literally see a picture of every piece of mail that you get, decide what you want to do with it, whether it's scanning it, forwarding it. We even deposit checks for clients. And ultimately, when you open a virtual office with us, or any membership with Piloto 151, one of the benefits is that you can take advantage of all of our permitting. So we do have a fast-track permitting system, and instead of waiting 6 months to a year for your municipal business license with Piloto, it's only a matter of weeks.
So we should give your number to Mr. Stolberg so he can work on the marina permits. If he's still around, we can give him this number. But and I'm going to go back to Rudy, because he also mentioned mindset. And when we talk about mindset, There are a lot of incentives out there we spoke about this morning. We learned about them. I know we, for a fact, BMA Group, we're an Act 20 company. Puerto Rican company existed for 20 years before it became an Act 20. We are an Act 20 working out of Puerto Rico, but that mindset helps you get through the obstacles, I'm sure of that. Now, I know for a fact, Louise, she's our hotelier, she's gonna tell us a little bit more about her story, how she's gone through those obstacles, overcome them, and benefited from these incentives, haven't you? Can you tell us your story?
So basically, hi everybody, my name is Loisse Herger. Thank you, Ricky, for putting an all-female panel. I think this is great.
Mine too. Mine too. The 20s were funny, but these are great.
So basically what I do is I'm a hotel owner. I basically own 2 hotels right now. My first hotel we opened together with my husband, which is also here, Fernando, in 2012. It's called Olive Boutique Hotel. Right after that, we won Best New Boutique Hotel of the World in London, and it was a huge success. It felt great. I was representing Puerto Rico in the world. From there, we benefit from talking about the incentives. Act 74, it's one of the incentives that we get. Is basically that when tax season comes, we don't stress out. We are 90% exempt from income tax, and we got a lot of benefits. Everything that we buy is tax exempt. So we've been able to manage all our profit and invest in another hotel. So a year ago, we opened our second project, and that's OLV 55. It's an amazing project. We've also been recognized through Travel and Leisure magazine, Vogue, Forbes, Rob Report as one of the coolest hotels in the world. And one of the things that made us continue investing in the hotel business in Puerto Rico was that we get 30 or 40, you decide. In our case, we picked 40 of whatever you invest. So that alone made the perfect scenario for us to not only, manage our hotels, but also to continue investing in the hotel business. So we now have 2 hotels and other plans coming up, but it's true. It's just like the benefits that the government or the tourism industry give us is the perfect scenario for us to keep moving ahead in the hospitality industry. Now permitting, I need to call you because 6 months, it's amazing.
Yeah, Louise, thank you very much. I've been to our hotels. They're magnificent, extraordinary. That's why we named you the Funky Hotelier.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much. Now, this is great. We have matchmaking, we have pioneering, we have somebody that's done it, it's been successful. And all this environment helps young techies, young entrepreneurs succeed. And I want to tell you a little bit, I'll let Lindsay tell us the story a little bit about how she became the CEO of Booksloth and how this environment has supported her growth and where she is today. Lindsay, if you would, please.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the invitation, for being here on this panel. So I am Lincy Ayala. I am the co-founder and CEO of Booksloth, and Booksloth is a mobile app focused on young adult readers that want to get great book recommendations, and we also have book clubs in the app. It's all available already in Android and iOS. And me and my team, all female and from Puerto Rico, we're the developers of the app. And you can sort of tell I'm the entrepreneur because I studied biology, and it definitely has nothing to do with what I'm doing today. But I'm really happy the journey I've taken, and thanks to a lot of the incentives in Puerto Rico, I've actually been able to do this. I'm an alumni from Parallel 18, both programs pre-18 and Parallel 18 that focus on different stages of the startup. And I have to say that thanks to other initiatives like Guayacán and even Sofia, I remember, 10 years ago, there wasn't a startup ecosystem. It was maybe 10, 20 people meeting at a restaurant at some point. And once she opened Piloto in Viejo San Juan, which was the first spot, and the events that she started bringing up, it definitely created the network. Like, thanks to those events, I started meeting people and getting into the startup thing and farther away from the biology thing. And sort of learning as I grow with the business. And right now, after going through the program of Parallel 18, my company is already growing, and we already raised money at Silicon Valley. So from Puerto Rico, my company just is starting to grow worldwide. So I guess from my side.
You gave me some great numbers when we were talking in the meeting before here. You want to give us some numbers?
Yeah, we raised $215,000 on our first round, pre-revenue, and it was from Silicon Valley, so that was a big change from coming from Puerto Rico, not having studied business or anything, just going through certain programs with my idea that's an app for books, and it's not the traditional sort of business or entrepreneur journey that you would see in a lot of cases, which has definitely made the journey a little difficult, but having people in the network support us through time and programs that are slowly showing up in Puerto Rico. I just got into the Bravo Foundation program as well, who's coming to Mayagüez. So you can definitely tell going from 10 years ago, not a single program or a single co-working space, to now multiple programs for the multiple stages of entrepreneurship. So I can definitely vouch for someone who wants to start a business. There are definitely a lot of programs to help you and incentives and a great network here to help you, including myself, if anyone is interested in talking about that. And there's also talent. Like me and my team, like I said, we're the developers ourselves. And there's, we have in Mayagüez College and private universities that teach programming or computer in my case. And we haven't had to look further from Puerto Rico in order to, get our great talent for our team.
So it would seem we have like the magic formula. We have the structures, we have the environment, and we have the talent put together. And when we look at the environment that supports entrepreneurship, and we consider our audience today, we have people that are newcomers to the island, 20 years, 22 years, people that have benefited from the incentives already. We have people that are local entrepreneurs that participate in local industries that either support all of that environment or are part of that environment. Another interesting statistic that we have here is females. Puerto Rico, for each 92 men, there's 100 women. It makes sense that we have 4 very successful entrepreneurs here sitting in front of us talking a little bit about the environment of entrepreneurship and how does it work in collaboration with the incentives that we're looking at and the conversations we've had today. So I'd like a little bit, I'm going to start once again on this side, a little bit your perspective, because I would think your organization is the more senior one, and then we go in that same order, as to how you have seen the environment change and become more favorable for investment in Puerto Rico, and what does the environment give you for that to grow, if you would please.
So, as you might imagine, that's not an easy answer, especially in a short period of time, but I'm going to tag on to what Lindsay was saying regarding just the tremendous growth that the ecosystem has seen in the last, I would say, 6 to 8 years, maybe a little more than that. But actually, and the power of the network within that ecosystem, coming as an outsider from the ecosystem and having been away from Puerto Rico for a very long time, I think one of the things that I most valued at the time was that there were people like Sofia who were already on the ground doing things, and as Lindsay was saying, maybe it was just like one event once in a while at Piloto Viejo San Juan, but that created the meeting spaces that allowed us to really think, in the changing context of Puerto Rico, what do we need to do? What are the pieces that are missing in that puzzle? And I can venture to say that the growth that we've seen over the last 6 to 8 years are not only in the educational programs, which is obviously a space that Guayacan is in, but also in other things like access to capital. We have a very long way to go in the access to capital space. But since you mentioned Rodolfo, I'm going to do that again. Rodolfo is one of the examples of people of my generation who probably had a career in financial services. And frankly, I had a little bit of a crisis when I started to learn about all of this, because I kept saying, but I was the kid who did everything right and went to the right schools and got the right jobs because, that was the track to being a banker. And so many people of my generation and the generations before me were on that same track. How come no one ever told us that private equity investment was important for Puerto Rico? So I had a very big crisis, and I said, what can we start to do differently, and how do we convince people that have the training and the skills that we need to start looking at alternative investments and at other vehicles to be able to get the capital to the people that need it. I would say that today that is still one of the main gaps is that there is capital out there. There's capital left in Puerto Rico. That is not to say that it has tremendously eroded, but there's still capital there that can be put to work to help our entrepreneurs grow and thrive. In 2012, I think it was, the Private Equity Funds Act 185, which is now under the Local Incentive Code, was a tool that people like Rodolfo and others used to say, listen, I've been doing whatever in the financial services space for some time. Let me do something different. Let me raise local capital to be able to either loan or invest in local entrepreneurs as they develop, growing capital needs. So I think that, just to summarize, the talent that is, has always been present, but is still present and is still very much resilient after the most recent crises we've had, is really the main asset that we continue to have. And now we have, the network continues to grow. So now we have people from other spaces finding their spot within the big jigsaw puzzle that we're still building. We're by no means done. So the importance of coming to places like this is being able to give the message that there's still a long way to go, but that there's people on the ground actually doing the work. And actually one of our entrepreneurs who also runs an impact fund keeps saying, give the capital to the people that can deploy it. And I strongly believe that Puerto Rico has talented people who can deploy capital to a very curated pipeline of entrepreneurs that have been roughing it for the longest time. So it's just a matter of being able to effectively attract the capital despite the complicated context and putting it to work in a way that is good for investors and for the entrepreneurs as well.
Thank you very much. And that's definitely the mindset. We're not done. That's the mindset of an entrepreneur. We're never done. You mentioned, and from Grupo Guayacán, we get a solid structure that can identify entrepreneurs at different levels. And you mentioned something to me in our conversation as we were prepping for this. You said, we just need somebody to
write the first check.
There you go, okay? Well, thank you very much. We'll come back to you in just a few minutes, okay? Sofia, for me, it's been a pleasure visiting your office, seeing your co-working space. We've even done work together because opportunities come up when all these minds are working together, and that is a great environment. In Puerto Rico, there are different incubators. There's Parallel 18, there's other types of almost similar opportunities for people to go and co-work. Now, I know that Piloto 151 has an environment that promotes that type, and I want to know a little bit about how that free flow environment perhaps compared to others that are more structured. I don't know. Would you tell us a little bit about that and how that helps Piloto 151 be a greater incubator or a faster incubator?
Sure. So we're not an incubator. I'm going to make that distinction very clearly.
I'm sorry, yes.
And we're also not an accelerator. We are strictly a co-working space. We do a lot of other things, though. We do provide a lot of business services for entrepreneurs. And we are sort of a one-stop shop that helps entrepreneurs really focus on what they're good at, which is selling and making revenues for their companies, right? I would say I do want to echo a little bit about what Lindsay mentioned earlier, and also sort of piggyback on what Laura mentioned. So 6 years ago when we did start Piloto 151, we weren't just the only co-working space, we were really the only meeting space for entrepreneurs, right? So very quickly, we started noticing that there was a need to bring the community together. And at first, it was interesting because it was sort of the same folks in the room, right? It was like all of the startups and techies of the time in 2013 meeting, probably on a monthly basis, learning new things, but it was always sort of the same people. And I think, something happened along the years, right? Somewhere along 2015, things started to change. We started hosting these events that we always hosted, but we started seeing new people we had never seen before. And I think it was right around the time when Puerto Rico's bonds reached junk status, right?
It was that summer,
It was that summer, exactly. And all of a sudden, we started seeing fresh faces, people that were already entrepreneurs that needed to pivot and change their business models because they weren't recession-proof anymore. We started seeing a lot of students that were worried about the job market. We started seeing people that had become unemployed and were looking for new opportunities. And a lot changed when that happened, because it became very clear, at least in my mind and in the mind of a lot of people in the entrepreneurship ecosystem at the time, which was very nascent, that if we really wanted to propel Puerto Rico's economy moving forward and we wanted to generate more economic growth, then we really needed to look at entrepreneurs as well. And we needed to really start providing entrepreneurs with all of the tools that they needed to precisely grow and thrive, right? And when that happened, a lot of other things started to happen. All the pieces started coming into play. I remember when Laura moved to Puerto Rico, she did an amazing job of transforming the programs that Guayacán had. Because Guayacán is the longest standing entrepreneurship organization here on the island, they had a lot of great programs and a lot of business competitions, but they weren't necessarily tweaked to the realities and necessities of our ecosystem at the time. So Laura did a great job of starting new programs, revamping old ones, creating a lot of the roadmap for what exists today. And then, slowly but surely, we started getting other entrepreneurship ecosystem players into the mix. Eventually, Parallel 18 was born, and that made a huge difference. Centro para Emprendedores also started helping a lot of entrepreneurs at different stages. And the result is really what Lindsay was talking about, right? We today have what I would call not a nascent ecosystem anymore. We're on our way to becoming a robust ecosystem. We still have a long road ahead, but we certainly have all the elements in play. And we certainly have programs for entrepreneurs at every single stage of their entrepreneurial journey. And we have a lot more support organizations. As ecosystem players, we also collaborate a lot more. So now we have a network called Comena 66, which allows which basically connects entrepreneurs to all the different entrepreneurial resources within the ecosystem. And we meet regularly to discuss what are the challenges and threats that our ecosystem is facing. So it's a very exciting time because there's a lot of opportunity in our ecosystem, I would say. And importantly, it's just getting started, right? We are just now seeing the first companies in Puerto Rico in the last couple of years raising over $1 million in capital, right? The first startups raising capital in Silicon Valley. None of that would have been possible 6 years ago, but today it's a reality, right? And if you were to ask me what the biggest challenge we face right now as an entrepreneurship ecosystem, it's really talent, but specifically tech talent, right? So.
And what have you done about it? Because if you can't buy it, you have to build it, right?
Absolutely. So at Piloto, we also have a coding school. It's called Code Trotters. It was the first coding school in Puerto Rico and actually also the Caribbean. And we opened our doors in 2015. We've trained over, I would say close to 1,000 people already in everything from web development all the way through mobile. And the interesting thing about our coding school, which is really awesome too, is that we've trained a lot of women in coding. And if you know the stats out there, they're not very great when it comes to gender parity, right? So I think that the statistics are something like 25% of all coding jobs are female, right? But that's just 25%. And then when you look at Silicon Valley companies, only 11% of top executives are female. So having Lindsay be not just a techie founder, but also have all female coders on her team is phenomenal, and it's really the anomaly, right? What I would say is we need more companies in our ecosystem right now to really invest in that pipeline, because a lot of people come down here and they touch on Piloto's door and we help them with the tax incentives, and we help them with staffing, and we help them with everything. But at the end of the day, they're looking for senior software developers. And that's great, right? Senior software developers are important for most companies that are growing. But we also have to do a better job of looking down at that pipeline, training junior talent, and ensuring that we can have more people do career changes like Lindsay did, and really join the tech movement and be a part of that. Because if we want companies to scale from Puerto Rico, then we don't just need the capital, we don't just need all of the elements and the support programs and the ecosystem in place and the tax incentives, which of course are great, and it's why many of you are here. We also need that talent to scale.
Excellent, Sofia. Thank you very much. A true pioneer, putting together the co-working space, the coding education so that we can feed the system. So that's excellent. As we move on to Louise, Louise, I would think, I was born and raised here in Puerto Rico. I saw the ocean every day. I have visited the world, fortunately, and I have seen the opportunities that tourism has to offer. You saw them too, apparently, and you have ventured into that sector, and you've done well. I would like to know, what is your vision for the sector as it grows? What obstacles do you see, and how do you think this group can participate in overcoming those obstacles and continue to develop that sector, the one that you participate in?
So I think that she tackled a lot of things that I've experienced, but in another sector. 10 years ago, when I started doing hotels, nobody knew what boutique hotels were. So whenever I had an interview or had to explain myself, I really had to go into explaining the concept of not being a resort, not being a guest house. Airbnb didn't exist at the time. It was basically VRBO, but it wasn't even trendy. So when I hear somebody like her saying that she was the first one to do the school for the coders and the first co-working space, and she's talking also about doing the first applications and being so successful, this is all very recent. Now I don't have to explain myself and tell people what a boutique hotel is. It was something worldwide already. I just had to bring it here. So when I see things like that happening, I can tell you that Puerto Rico still has a lot of opportunity in every single sector, not just hospitality and her work. It's just that there is a lot of opportunity in every single industry. And the formulas are sometimes done in the States, in Europe. You just have to bring it here, make it your own. So I when we started designing hotels and doing our second project, we basically, in terms of obstacles, we saw opportunity. We saw the opportunity to create something different of what other big hotels were doing. We have, this is La Concha, but we have Hilton, and they're all very cookie cutter places. So when you go to our place, like my hotels, you will have more of an experience where design is key, where service, where it's a smaller hotel, and it's more personalized, right? You bring in the local experience. I saw here today Federico Stubi standing here presenting ginormous projects. My projects are not that big, but I feel excited for what is coming, because sometimes whenever I see a McDonald's and I see Burger King and I see a KFC and you see all of them in the same space, it creates, motion creates emotion. That's the way I always feel. If we have hotels, I want other people to come in. I want other people to create an environment where people feel that it's cool to come to Puerto Rico, that we have cool hotels, that they're design rich, that it's not just the same place that you stay here or in the United States, or it doesn't add to your experience. So the tourism industry here has been pretty much, I would say, growing, one of the industries that grows. Obviously, we've had tremendous setbacks. We had the hurricane and the earthquakes and the Zika, but all of that, it just makes you sometimes more bulletproof. I always say that.
I love when you use that example in the meeting.
We are. We never close. As for me, that was the greatest example. After Hurricane Maria hit the island, a lot of hotels closed. they business interruption, and they got damages. Luckily, we were in the middle of construction. We were doing our second hotel, had 40 workers doing the construction. They all disappeared. We had only a few, but we were open. We had people stay in our hotel, our employees stay in our hotel. We never closed a single day. We hosted 30 people during the hurricane, and they stayed with us, and I never had an empty room for at least 6 or 7 months. So out of something that was so bad, I had the best selling year that year after the hurricane. The best year. And it was hard. It was very hard. Our generator broke. We had to find another generator. We had to take care of clients in ways that we never thought it was possible. I went to the office in boots, like rain boots. I had rain boots. I went to the truckers to begging for diesel. I went in the truck and go to my diesel and put it in. I learned every single thing you can ask me about the generators. I know all the brands. I know everything. You really need to know that now. So if you tell me, whenever people read about in the news, oh no, Puerto Rico earthquake is all going down, and then people, they get demotivated. They kind of oh no, well then I'm not going because it's not perfect. But you know what? We're still here, and we thrive, and we're resilient, and everything's gonna pass. The earthquake came in January. We're good in February. It's all good. So for people that come to invest in Puerto Rico, I will tell them, the news, sometimes they mislead you, right? When you're here and you see what's happening, it's not really, it's bad, but it's also, it's okay, it's gonna pass. We're bulletproof. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you take something from me, take it that we are bulletproof.
Louise, and you are, and that was great. Thank you, Louise. You see, that's why I wanted to do this panel. Okay, interviewing ladies like this is extraordinary. Thank you very much. Earlier today they talked about things that happen. We get hurricanes, we get earthquakes. I know from the BMA group, we too never stopped operating, and actually we became a better company because of it. And you never closed, and that made you a better company. You learned about diesel engines. I did too, and that makes the Puerto Rican entrepreneur world even stronger. You would say that innovation and entrepreneurship have to go together to be successful. Well, you got to put in a lot of hard work too. These ladies have done that. And when you put together two great things, it's hard. You need to find a balance. Lindsay, when I look at your profile, I see that you're a front-end developer, you're a designer, but you also are the CEO of a business that's doing very well. I'd like to learn a little bit about the balancing that you're doing for that. What can you tell us, and how has the environment helped you manage that so that you can do it successfully?
Yeah, so definitely I feel like a lot of my training was self-made. Like I said, I studied biology, so the education in college has nothing to do with the business I'm running or my real work, which is the design and being the CEO of a company. So by creating Booksloth, thankfully we started off with the program that was pre-18, which was actually created after and because of Hurricane Maria. So I would be one of the cases that because of the hurricane, a lot of entrepreneurship and a lot of companies were born, so like mine. And thanks to the program, I had to learn about being a lawyer, opening a company, incorporating, being an accountant, running all those things, because when you're small and starting, you can't really pay for all those services as a large company would, so you have to wear all 10 hats. And when you're a small company as well, you have to do all the jobs that are necessary. Power generators. I didn't have an office, so I didn't have to power a generator, but you have to sort of start from the bottom and work. So time-wise...
Go to a co-working space.
Yeah, we did.
I know a great one.
We were
Yeah, we did at some point, and programs like Sofia's or even Parallel 18, they do have services that help you, start a company or incorporation process, and having mentors in the co-working. Thankfully, I knew people because of being part of the ecosystem back when Piloto started. I had people to call and ask, okay, so where do I start? How do I incorporate a business? And through the Parallel 18 and Pre-18 program, that was part of the initial process of starting the company. They help you out. set that up, and then you sort of learn as you go for the most part. Dealing with my time as CEO, designer, developer, I have to really just focus maybe weekly or daily. Like today I'm going to be more a CEO and answer emails, talk to investors, and then tomorrow I go back to designing the app because it's a little hard to defocus. You can't just pick up a call from the investor and then just keep designing or coding as fast or as easy. So you have to learn how to content switch. But in programming, since a lot of companies expect you, when they say programmer, they expect you to learn all 20 programming languages, and that's actually 20 jobs, not just one. We're sort of used to that expectation and running on doing a lot of things at the same time. So I think I've managed it. Now I'm wearing more of a CEO hat because I have investors now, and I'm leaving the design part. The app is more stable as well. So at the beginning, I had to design more, and once the app was out, I have to sell it and talk to investors and get into programs. But now I'm working more full-time as CEO and getting those connections to help my business grow, and managing a team. Like now we're 3 full-time developers and full-time employees, including myself, and 2 part-time employees. So the business is slowly growing, and I also have to learn how to be a manager of a team and how the team dynamics work. Culture, company culture is the most important thing. Thankfully, our employees and our team has really worked very well since the beginning. I've been lucky, but I also feel like we've put the effort in looking for the right people, just like we did with our investors. I love the investment firm that we have, and I think there's a lot of opportunity in Puerto Rico, and a lot of companies and startups like mine that are slowly growing and taking advantage of these opportunities. And we can make this reach global. I know there's a lot we can do.
Great, and if you haven't downloaded it yet, please look for it. It's Book Sloth. It's excellent, and if you enjoy reading, you will enjoy it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I liked when you mentioned content switch, how you have to flip from being a CEO to being a developer again. That's part of the bulletproofing process, and I see a very strong team here of women that independent in different parts of the business have all somehow related to each other. And that's part of what being in Puerto Rico and being a Puerto Rican is. That's part of what the 20ers earlier this morning said. They said they came here for the tax incentives, but then they said they stayed. And they stayed for different reasons. And one of them was talent, great talent. Great talent has to do not only with just having certain knowledge, but knowing how to collaborate amongst ourselves. And I've been talking to you for the last 43 minutes about this great environment that we have here, some great success stories of great businesses, great entrepreneurs, great innovation. But at the end of the day, I am a businessman who likes to develop new business, so I'm in sales. So I'll give you guys a chance to use the next 30 seconds each to close it. This is an audience. We all came here for a purpose. We wanted to talk about our businesses, grow them, and see how this environment can help catapult that to the next level. So let's sell it. We got 30 seconds each. You want to start closing?
I will. Before I close, I will also say the ecosystem has gone beyond the entrepreneurs. There are corporate partners in the room, as well as nonprofits, organizations that support our efforts, and that's just made the network more powerful. And so we hope that some of you who are here today and are seeing us for the first time, come talk to us and see in which ways you can support our entrepreneurs. There's many ways to do that. There's mentoring and coaching opportunities, there's investment opportunities, and we need all the help we can get, because these are the talented people that we want to be able to bridge and connect with the right people so that they can, like Lindsay, go outside of Puerto Rico, raise capital, and find the people that they need to grow and scale from Puerto Rico.
Thank you, Laura, the matchmaker.
So how many of you are not currently living in Puerto Rico but are thinking about making the move? Okay, at least 2 or 3 of you that I see in the audience.
We'll get you on the way out.
I think you've heard from everybody here, the message is pretty clear, right? There's really nothing to lose. The tax incentives, yes, are wonderful, and they certainly will make a difference in your business, but there's tons of opportunity. Setting up in Puerto Rico is very easy thanks to companies like ours, so we're happy to help you come down. And more importantly, people stay here not because of the tax incentives. They stay here because of that opportunity, because of these strong networks, because of everything that's happening around us. It's a great time to grow a company from Puerto Rico. I think it's probably the best time. Some people will look at me and say you're crazy, but when there's a lot of economic pain, there's also a lot of economic opportunity, right? And it's something that you won't see in any other ecosystem that's developed. Being a part of that change, being engaged with our ecosystem here is really going to make the difference in the end. Tax incentives are fantastic, but they also have a sunset, right? So many people that have come down have made this their home, and it's clear that it's not just because of all the opportunity around them.
Thank you, Sofia Stolberg, our pioneer. Loisse, if you want to close, please.
So let me just tell you that you have been the best moderator here.
Thank you.
Letting us monetize our presentation. How good is that? So basically, my end here will be, if you all have Instagram, go to OLV Hotel. And my next question will be, where are you staying? And if you don't have a place, we do. We also have an amazing restaurant. We partner with the best local chef. His name is Mario Pagan. So we have Raya, which is an amazing Caribbean Asian mix. It's a beautiful restaurant. And we have Sage Steak Loft, which is a steakhouse with an Italian dishes as well. Very well known. And we have 2 rooftops for have to drink. So after here, where are you going?
After the paella, of course. After the paella,
sorry.
of course.
After party.
After party.
So yeah, thank you for all that.
Thank you very much, Louise, the funky hotelier. And Lindsay, if you would please take us home.
Yeah, so first, if you like to read, like he said, you can download the app on iPhone and Android. And if you have any feedback, we're still developing and we're hoping to get user feedback just to make it as best as we can. And from the investment standpoint, don't dismiss companies. There's a lot of interest right now in Puerto Rico, and with the startups that are just rising in Puerto Rico, or the ones that have been here for a couple of years, we're pretty sure there's a unicorn in the ecosystem just waiting to be discovered, like a hidden diamond. And there's a lot of people coming from the States, looking for that. And I'm just hoping that I'm one of the examples that there really is a lot of talent in the island. And even if it's unexpected or not your traditional founders, full female team or male or just Hispanic, etc. I think there's a lot of opportunity, and we have a lot to give from the entrepreneur side of things.
Thank you, Lindsay, the techipreneur. You're all great role models for my girls. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Thank you very much for listening.